Hello, and welcome to today's story. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more. The story you're about to hear is based on accounts and rumors. Its full truth can't be confirmed. Now sit back, relax, and let's dive right in. I'm posting from a throwaway because I don't want this tied to my main, if I even keep a main after tonight. If any of you are in facilities or retail, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you aren't, just understand that the cheapest places to hide problems are in basements and in budgets. I came in at the bottom of both. 3 months ago, I was so broke, I was making a game out of timing my hunger. Wait 10 more minutes, drink water, wait 5 more, sleep. I took the first job that called back night cleaner for an old department store that's half abandoned except for a few stubborn tenants on the ground floor. They kept the doors open to stay eligible for whatever tax write-offs keep a corpse limping. The manager who hired me, Lyndon, had the kind of smile you can hear but not see. He never looked at me long enough to meet my eyes. First day, he walked me through the rules like he was reading a script they'd buried with him. You start at 9 p.m. Clock on in the security office. You keep the showroom lights on. Don't touch the dimmers. Don't go into the basement storage. Ever. He said, ever, with the cadence of a nursery rhyme. Then he signed for my cart, my badge, and a key ring that had been meticulously stripped down to exactly the doors I needed and no others. The basement key was not on it. You'll hear the building, he added casually. Old wood, old vents. Ignore it. We monitor everything on camera. He left me in the security office to get a feel for the monitors while he went to check the boilers. Another phrase you learn is code for smoke alone and hate your life in peace. The showroom, what's left of it, is a hollowed-out cathedral of sale racks and mannequins. They're the modern kind, glossy, sexless, perfectly smooth like someone sandpapered a person down to their platonic silhouette. A few still wore sun-bleached outfits from last summer's clearance event, splashed across plastic with curling tape. The rest stood naked on chrome rods, legs punctured by little blades that anchor them to their stands. People always complain mannequins are creepy. I used to roll my eyes. After the first week, I stopped rolling them. On my first night, I swept and mopped and did the quiet work of being unnoticed. Near midnight, while I was buffing the tile by the escalators, I heard a sound beneath my feet, like someone was dragging a pallet across hardwood. Wood on wood, a long scrape. A short rest, a long scrape. Then still. The building is old, and the floors are layered. I told myself it was pipes, ducts, vermin with ambition. Lyndon did his rounds with a clipboard and a stale peppermint stuck to his throat. He made a point of wasting time in the aisles nearest the button that controlled the showroom lights. Don't touch it, he said again, like I was a child hovering my palm over a stove. We leave these on. Saves trouble later. Why? I asked, because I was young enough to still ask why, and old enough to know there wouldn't be a real answer. Because that's the rule, he said. You vacuum, you wipe, you clock off. We don't overthink. Some rules are bones. You do not bend them without hearing the crack. On my second night, I heard the scraping again right after the lights flickered. I checked my phone. It was midnight. The building had a brief spasm, like it was swallowing. Then the security feed on the far monitor blinked and came back. I didn't think much of it until I was emptying trash by the fire stairs and saw the basement door. The door is one of those industrial gray slabs you have to want to see. It was locked. It was always locked, and yet it was ajar an inch, like the building was breathing through that crack. There's a trick in this job where you tell yourself a lie that gets you through. My lie was that the door wasn't really open, that currents do weird things, that I would use the broom to nudge it shut and forget I ever saw it. I prodded the handle with the upside of the broom like I was poking a sleeping dog. The door swung and my light spilled down concrete steps. And I saw them, mannequins, dozens of them, arranged in a storage maze of wire shelving and out-of-season stock and wheeled Z racks, not stored upright like any sane stockroom would do. They were posed mid-movement, a woman figure in a runner's stride, one arm forward, one back, head tilted like she'd heard her name. Another caught in the act of turning away, shoulder rotated, torso twisted. A male torso, someone had removed the legs, perched on a shelf with arms out, palms up, like he'd just said, "Wait," when a bomb went off. None of them were on their stands. There is a cold you feel that is not temperature. It is a subtraction, the math of realizing your understanding is missing a number. I shut the door. The scrape came again from below, longer now, with the small clinking sounds of chrome and metal tapping tile. I told myself, staging, they're staged for an art class, a window display, a holiday bit the store never pulled off. Someone stacked them funny. A junior employee with a sense of humor. At 2 a.m., with the building humming like a whale asleep, the lights flickered again. I don't mean a normal flicker. It was synchronized across the showroom, a short blackout that felt like a blink. When the light steadied, something in the room had changed. It took me a long second to see it. The harried-looking mannequin in the women's section, who had been posed mid-run with an arm extended, now had that extended finger raised higher, almost to the mouth. It's nothing, I told myself. It's always been like that, you just didn't notice. Stop being a kid. But I do this thing when I know I'm lying to myself where I check the camera. If the feed matches my memory, I calm down. If it doesn't, well, the security monitors had a split-screen rotation, a lazy cycle through a dozen grainy angles. I backed up the DVR 10 minutes, then 20. Pixelated me trundled a mop past a female figure with her hand near shoulder level. Flicker. When the feed stabilized, her arm was raised higher. Same jagged little finger, now hovering near where a real mouth would be. I scrubbed to the next flicker, tightening, that finger pressed against a blank face where no lips existed, a pose I hadn't seen on any of the floor mannequins before. Hush. My eyes watered. I told myself it was bleach. Behind me, the dragging came again. Wood on wood, relentless and patient. On the third night, I brought chalk. It sounds stupid now. It actually sounded stupid then, but there's a particular dread that makes you want proof you can hold in your hand. So before I clocked in, I loitered in the loading bay by the dumpsters, popped open a little box of sidewalk chalk someone's kid must have left, and slid the white stick into my pocket. I waited until Lyndon drifted off to wherever angry men go to turn off their thoughts. I waited until the camera cycle was on a dead spot. Then I nudged the basement door with my broom and edged down 2 steps. The air smelled like dust trapped for 100 years. I couldn't bring myself to go further, not really, not after seeing how they were arranged. But I crouched and scribbled a chalk line along the bottom edge of the door threshold and another on the floor in a big sloppy curve that tallied the hinge's swing. If anything moved that door more than a few inches, I'd know. When I finished my shift and went back to the bay for a cigarette, I wasn't going to smoke. Holding it made me feel adult. I told myself I wouldn't check. I checked anyway. The chalk line on the floor was smudged into a comet's tail. A dusty heel of a chrome base had smeared through the arc. On the 4th night, Lyndon gave me a folded sheet of paper like he wanted me to be grateful for it. "This is from the last guy," he said. "He quit. Didn't give notice. Don't be like him." He said it as if the quitting itself were a moral crime. The paper was a list, typed, then hand annotated. Don't turn the showroom lights off, not even to change bulbs. Upstairs lights can be off. Basement stays dark. If a basement door is open, shut it. If a mannequin is not on a stand, leave it alone. Don't mop the basement stairs. Don't run the floor buffer after 1 a.m. Vibrations carry. If you hear scraping, do not stomp. Someone had written, please, next to that last one in small ragged pencil letters. I asked Lyndon about it because I wanted him to be the sane voice, the adult, the one to laugh and tell me it was a prank sheet. He didn't laugh. He took it back from my hand like I had touched his paycheck and said, "It's in your locker. Remember the lights." That night, the camera caught 2 different mannequins in the showroom, not the basement, standing in places they hadn't been. One at the top of the escalator, looking down over the rails like a commuter. One near the registers turned toward the security office. The flickers were getting longer. Every time the overheads stuttered, there was a staccato rattle from below. By night 5, I had names for them in my head. Runner, turn away, palms up, and the one with the finger. Hush. I didn't speak those names out loud, I'm not an idiot, but my thoughts used them like lit labels stuck to shadow. I also started to notice how many mannequins were not on the floor. The juniors on the mezzanine, gone. The cluster near men's suits, thinned. The kids' figures in rainbow plastic, 3 down to 1. Some of that is normal, they cycle displays constantly, but we weren't doing any new windows. We weren't doing any events. We were dying. I did another chalk line under the door out of compulsion. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I wedged a piece of mop handle into the frame. A makeshift stopper. I told myself I was keeping a pile of awkward plastic from crashing into the stairs, that I was preventing liability, that I was being a good employee in a bad job. When I came back up, the showroom lights flickered and did not fully return for a full 2 seconds. It felt like falling asleep in a car and waking up inches from the shoulder rail. When the brightness returned, the Hush mannequin, the one from women's wear, had turned towards the security office on the feed. It was impossible. I immediately gaslit myself. Different model, different angle, reflection, you're tired. Night 6 is when I decided to look through the old incident logs in the desk. This is something you can do at any dead retail job. Rummage in binders and read the store's diary, written by bored people with clipboards. They're always the same: slip and falls, lost and found, employee feuds disguised as paperwork. I found what I expected, and I found things I didn't. 3 reports were written in a hand I didn't recognize. It wasn't Lyndon's. They were 2 years old, and all involved unauthorized access, sub-level. The notes were sparse, but the times matched the flicker times. Midnight, 1:17 a.m., 3:03 a.m. A 4th report simply had 1 sentence. Advise cleaning crew to leave showroom lights on per guidance. No signature, no elaboration. A 5th was a photocopy of a warning with the words, "Do not feed" circled, then scratched out and then rewritten as "Do not lead." That tickled something in my brain I didn't want tickled. Lead what? Night 7 was a storm. You know the kind, humid pressure for hours, then the sky goes from damp dishwater to steel and starts to spit. By 11:30, the gutters were raging. Neon signs outside, screeching bugs in a blue aquarium. The power went out twice. Each time the generator caught, the showroom lights built back up, and my heart came down from my tongue. At midnight, the house panel tripped and did not catch. The monitors died. The white of the showroom went black in a soft, enormous way. I thought I had time to reach the breaker, to fix it before Lyndon did and blamed me. The breaker was in the basement. There are moments where fear and compliance wrestle, and compliance wins for the dumbest reasons. I took my phone, my flashlight, and my key ring that did not include the basement key, and I went to the breath crack. the door was open. I don't know if you've ever walked into a space and had to force your eyes to stop looking where they want to look. I held my light to the steps and only the steps. 1, 2, 3. I aimed at the cinder block wall when every mammal instinct said, "Look at the floor." I saw in the bounce of the beam chrome stands leaning like bones against the shelving, a runner's calf, a hand upturned. I found the breaker box. I found with blind fingers the big lever that would shove us into light again. I yanked. Nothing. There is a sadness involved in pulling a lever with confidence, and silence answers you. A loneliness that makes you picture the dial tone when you call a number you know is dead. Behind me, the scraping started. Not one monotonous line, but many small drags, all at once, stopping and starting in a rhythm that felt planned. If you've ever watched a group of people carry something huge, how one person adjusts, then another, pause, lift, scrape. You know the choreography. It was below that. Far back, coming forward. I turned, pointed the flashlight. They froze. I know how it sounds. I don't expect you to believe me because typing it makes me feel like a tourist in my own skull, but every mannequin in that wash of light was suddenly very much a mannequin again. The poses were arresting, runner twisted mid-stride, palms up leaning from the shelf. Turnaway crooked, as if she hadn't quite completed the turn. And the hush mannequin was closer than I thought she'd be, finger pressed to nothing, tilting. I lowered the light a fraction to find my footing. The scraping surged, I snapped the beam back up, and the hush figure was 5 inches closer. Not a measurement I'm used to making, but that's exactly what it felt like, the way you know the space between a face and yours without thinking. The bulb in my flashlight is LED. It's not supposed to flicker. But when you're trembling, your grip trembles with you. The beam jittered, and in those tiny shadows they came forward in stops and starts, their chrome bases clacking and ringing like far-off cutlery, sliding along, lifting, shifting. They moved like something carried them when I wasn't watching. I screamed for Lyndon. "Lyndon, the lights." The scrape wasn't even trying to hide now. It was eager. I took 3 steps backward, hit the door frame, and slammed the door with my shoulder. It did not latch. The piece of mop handle I'd wedged earlier had split and fallen. I tried to pull, tried to find the sweet spot where old doors catch. The weight behind it wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was like an iceberg thinking about you. I ran back down the steps because some part of me decided if the breaker box didn't sing, then something else would. There's a maintenance closet to the left by the old receiving desk. I've seen work lights in there. It was locked. My keys were for everything, but I thought about calling 911 and hearing myself explain that plastic models were... What? Trespassing? Spooking me? Not on a night the city was drenched and real emergencies stacked like lobby umbrellas. I did the only thing I could think to do. I took out my phone and filmed. Whenever the light seizes something into being, it burns it into your head, even if the frame shakes, even if your breath sounds too loud. I flicked to video, pointed down the aisle at a cluster of figures near the base of the stairs, then deliberately panned the phone away to the cinder block wall for 3 seconds. That nearly quiet scrape, that glacial choreography, I panned back, closer. Their heads didn't have faces, but I felt stared at anyway. I flashed the torch in pulses, trying to time it like a cheap strobe. The movement happened in the spaces, the way thunder lives between lightning. 1 pulse, hush at the foot of the stairs. Another runner half on a chrome base like a skateboard. Another palms up, palm out now, as if to say, genuinely, stop. I realized then what the dragging sound had been all along, not pallets or boxes or wood on wood. The stands, those little metal blades in thick chrome circles, scraping the ground as they were hauled into position like anchors. They hadn't been stored off their stands because someone was lazy or weird. They'd taken themselves off to move, and for weeks, years, they'd been working the door at the top of the stairs trying to get into the light. There was a sound behind me that wasn't scraping. It was the soft, simple click of a lock turning. Not the basement upstairs. The only person up there with reason to lock anything was the manager. "Lyndon," I shouted, "open it." Nothing. There's a phrase in those old incident reports I kept circling mentally. Do not lead. I finally understood. You keep the showroom lights on because light makes them hold their poses. Light is the cage. You don't dim them because then they can organize. And you don't walk into the basement because you are a lamp with legs. You are the one thing they need. I bought myself time by hurting them with my phone. Don't ask me how I held it and the flashlight and my sanity. There is an ugliness in your guts that wakes up when a blank face is pointed at your throat. I moved like someone guiding cattle, light sweeping in arcs to pin them and then flick away, before one of the others skated forward on that chrome ring. More gathered from the dark behind the shelving. Children's forms, smaller, some missing arms, one missing both legs, but somehow propelling itself on its ring like a grotesque Roomba. The hush mannequin was the only one that seemed to get closer no matter how careful I was. Her finger, its finger, pushed against its own smoothness where a mouth should be, and left the faintest chalky mark like a smudge. Don't ask me how plastic leaves residue on plastic. Don't ask me how anything works when it should not. I backed up the stairs again, breathing like a dog, phone out with the flashlight app open now, both lights at once. I counted the steps. There are 12. At stair 7, the leading figures were already on 3. At stair 9, my foot slipped on something slick, and when my light hit it, I saw a smear of the same dusty chalk from my line on the floor. They had worn my warning thin. I slammed the door again, and this time the latch caught, not because the door liked me, but because something behind it leaned forward as if to listen. I fumbled the keys in blind panic. No basement key, of course. 10 keys banging uselessly on the slab. Behind me, the showroom was the black mouth of a whale. No emergency strips, no spill of street lamp through the rolling gates. I had never understood darkness as an environment until that moment. I was a shape in a bigger shape that hated me. "Lyndon," I said again, quieter because adrenaline was leaking out of me and the reality was leaking in. What kind of man locks a door on an employee running from something his job description did not include? The answer, apparently, a man who likes rules because he knows what happens when they are broken. I banged on the door with the butt of the flashlight. Something on the other side tapped back. Not a scrape. A tap exactly where my knock had landed, then a second tap. The rhythm, polite. 3 taps, patient, like someone reminding me of the cadence of a nursery rhyme. That's when the showroom lights came back up. They didn't brighten slowly, they slammed on. The whole floor jumped into being. I stumbled back, hands to my face, blind spots exploding like nebulae. When my vision steadied, I saw the mannequins on the floor, all of them, standing with that dead leaf patience in clumps on their stands, as if nothing had ever happened. Near the registers, near the escalator, near the security office, near the doors, all right where they belonged. Except, no, there were more. I knew there were more. My brain tried to count and gave up. "Do your job," Lyndon said from somewhere to my left. I hadn't heard him approach. He stood under a bank of lights like an exhibit about people who work too long in fluorescent rooms. He didn't look at me. He looked at the door. His mouth worked like he was chewing a peppermint he'd already eaten. "You locked me in," I said. It wasn't even a question. It was a measurement. "You went where you were told not to," he said. "They were and I stopped because the word moving didn't want to leave my mouth. It's a stupid word. It is a simple word for simple things. It doesn't belong to plastic. They were coming up. His jaw tensed. That's what they do. How long has this been happening? He shrugged one shoulder, then both, like the answer was a coat that didn't fit. Since before me. Since before you. The building's older than we are. Things collect in old places. The light keeps them posed. The light makes the ground floor safe. And the basement, I asked. The basement is storage, he said. We store them. We leave them be. We don't lead? The word again, like a religious chant. You left me, I said. You locked me. His eyes finally met mine, and in them I saw a thing I wouldn't name if you paid me. It wasn't malice, exactly. It was dividend. You got out. They almost didn't, I said. I almost didn't. But you did. He checked his watch. He is the kind of man who looks at his watch when he doesn't have to. Finish your shift. I don't remember finishing. I remember the buffer refusing to sit flat because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I remember one of the kids' mannequins up by the candy shop that had not been there before, tiny and smooth, looking in the direction of the basement door with its whole body, which is the only direction it can look. I remember thinking, I will quit, I will quit, I will quit. Like a mantra, you whisper to yourself while falling asleep on a bus you can't afford. I wrote my notice on a napkin I took from the break area and left it under Lyndon's clipboard. It said 2 words, I quit. I took a photo of it on my phone in case I needed proof for unemployment. My hands were still shaking in the picture. The letters looked like someone wrote them on a moving train. I went home and slept the way you sleep when you're 14, and you wake up after a fever, and the house is empty, and for a second, you don't know your name. I woke at 4 p.m. to 8 texts from a number I didn't recognize. The last one said, come in tonight. We need you. Or don't. Either way, leave the showroom lights on. I turned my phone face down. I'll admit it. I considered not going back, not to collect my last pay, not to pick up my last check, not to see that room again, ever. I went back. I wish this were the part where bravery mattered. It wasn't bravery, it was rent. The sky was clear when I walked to the store. The storm had scoured the city and left everything pill bright. The gate was half up, a strip of yellow glow pooling under it like melted butter. I ducked, swiped my badge, waited for the security lock to thunk. The showroom lights were on, all of them. So bright the air ticked. The mannequins stood as if nothing had happened, posed, frozen, obedient. Hush was back in women's wear, finger just a hair lower than before. And if I was a man with less pride, I would have walked right up to her and snapped that plastic digit off and thrown it in Lyndon's face. The security office was empty. The monitors were turned so they faced the wall like someone in trouble. The incident log binder was gone. Lyndon, I called, because even when you hate the sound of someone's name, you say it. Nothing. I did a floor pass I had no intention of doing. Vacuum, wipe, polish, because moving is easier than thinking when you're scared. The building thrummed. The hum of light was so constant it made the air feel pressurized. I kept my eyes on corners, on stand rods, on the neat discs at their feet that had been anchors and were now props again. I checked the basement door and smiled, laughed actually, a short wild bark, because there was a new lock on it, 2 locks and a thick bar across the outside. Someone had added a sign, employees only, as if the door had ever been for customers. At 2 a.m., the overheads flickered. I don't think I breathed for 5 seconds. My lungs refused to negotiate with my heart. The lights steadied. When they did, the hush mannequin was no longer looking toward women's wear. She was looking at the security office. I say looking as if there were eyes. There aren't. but direction is a language even dummies speak. I backed toward the monitors like maybe I could watch the last hour and reassure myself. I never saw the note until my elbow brushed it to the floor. It was taped under the desk, folded into an envelope that wasn't an envelope, just paper pretending. Inside was another typed list. Same font, same margins, new lines. If they look at the office, don't go in the office. If they gather near the registers, do not open any drawers. If the hush one changes, do not look away. If the lights flicker for longer than 3 seconds, sit down and wait. Do not run. Running leads. I didn't sit. I couldn't. The flicker came again, and the air compressed and popped like ears at takeoff. I looked up at the skylights, old wires, old glass, and I counted 1, 2, 3, 4. The lights came back up, deeper than before, like something had exhaled and vacated a space for them. In the instant between dark and bright, the hush mannequin moved. Not a stop-motion tick. A move in light. She stepped off her stand. I don't know if you understand how small that sounds. She stepped off her stand, and how wrong it felt. The chrome ring clattered and spun, anchoring nothing. Her foot, a molded, smooth nothing foot, came down flat on tile. The sound was not plastic. It was the soft tick of something hard making a decision. Every figure on the floor turned. There is no head to turn. There is only a long, pale slope. But they oriented towards the office, toward me, toward the only heat in a room full of light. The rule had been the rule until it wasn't. The light had kept them still until it didn't. None of my lies could cover the simple truth of motion. I did what I have always done in every emergency I've ever had. Something small and stupid. I picked up the fallen chrome ring because I didn't want to trip on it. I held it like a shield, like a toy, like the useless thing it is. "Lyndon," I said, quiet now. I wasn't sure whether I was calling for help or blaming him. The first row of mannequins stepped forward. Their bases, those dots of chrome, rattled as they freed themselves, and the sound was like hundreds of coins falling down a stairwell. The hush mannequin pressed her raised finger harder to her blankness and left a deeper mark. Where a mouth should be, there was a shadow now, a gray suggestion, a smudge where none had been. I backed into the office and did the one thing the note told me not to do. I closed the door. It's glass. Of course it's glass. Every security office in retail is a fishbowl. I watched them come through my own reflection. A crowd of smooth knot people, moving the way we all move when we're late and don't want to admit it. I thought about barricading the door. There is nothing heavy in that room. There is a trash bin and a chair, a printer that eats paper and spits out nothing, a desk where I pretended for 60 nights to be an adult. In the top drawer, because muscle memory has its own survival plan, I found the napkin with my shaky. I quit printed on it. I folded it into a useless square and put it in my pocket because when you are drowning, you gather anything that floats. They reach the glass. Hands, not hands, pressed flat. No arms, only those shapes that suggest arms, and yet the pressure was there, the squeak of squeaky clean meeting worse squeak. Hush stood directly in front of me, her finger now resting on the suggestion of a mouth like a lover. I am writing this now because my phone is at 22%, and the building Wi-Fi finally stopped being throttled long enough to let me post. I thought I wouldn't do this. I thought saying it would make it more real. I thought silence kept you safe. I don't think anything keeps you safe. I think rules keep you slow. The lights just flickered again for 5 seconds. The room didn't go out. It dimmed like someone put a hand over the sun. In that syrup, they moved, not in the cracks between, not in the respectful pauses. In the light. Hush's finger is pressed entirely into that smudge now. And here is the worst part, the part I didn't want to type. The smudge is deeper. There's a dent in the plastic, like wear, like use, like practice. Behind her, more of them have their hands up in that same almost gentle pose. And the kid-sized one at the edge of the crowd just tilted its head. The showroom lights are steady bright, and it does not matter. I've read enough of your stories to know someone will say, just run. If you've read this far, you know why I won't. I won't lead anything anywhere. I won't use my legs as a lighthouse. I won't show them the path to the doors they've wanted forever. If they want me, they know where I am. They knew before I did. Something is tapping on the glass in a rhythm. 3, pause, 3, pause, 3. Like knocking from the other side of the locked door. They don't have knuckles. They don't have patience. But they have time. They have had nothing but time. Lyndon, if you're reading this, and I know you are because cowardice has its own RSS feed, you told me to keep the lights on. I did. It's not enough. You told me not to go into the basement. I did. It was already too late. The only thing I won't do for you is lead. I won't give them a map. I'm going to set the phone on the desk facing them, not because I think video will save me, because I want there to be a record that the rule changed, that the light is not a promise, that some things look at you without eyes and mean it. They're learning. The hush one, just put the finger down and spread the palm where a mouth should be, like a teacher asking a question. I won't run. I won't lead. I hear the wood scrape again from the stairs, from the history beneath all of us. It's not coming up. It's arrived. Thanks for listening. I really enjoyed putting this story together for you. If you liked it, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories, and share it with someone who's into this kind of stuff. See you next time.